Hi. Yeah, so the third podcast is called Ausbaufähig in German, which has a lovely ä. I just want to check in if you can, everybody write in the chat that you can hear me, so I know that you can and I'm not just talking and nobody can hear me. But okay, all is great. Thank you for the feedback. So now let's start with the solution, because as I checked the exercise, I was this typical developer, a bit of overconfident and super underestimating. I checked the specs. It was create two endpoints, use a library that already exists, and you're done. So I thought, okay, what will I do 5 minutes afterwards? As I actually did it, I was surprised, not that simple actually. So I have the website running, and my task is something completely different. It is creating images. But what I first saw was this missing gap. I'm not sure if you've seen it as you start with the branch, but as said in my introduction, I had this focus on human-computer interaction and making things also nice. And also as a duty as my front-end developer, I wanted to first know what actually happened here so that we don't have the space here. I will zoom in a bit, and I unfortunately somehow can't zoom in into my DevTools here. I can only zoom out. So I will talk you rather through what I'm doing. I'm just checking for these containers. I see div, you don't have to see it. But what I see is that a margin button of 10 is applied to the first one and not to the other div containers. So let's jump into the code editor. In the code editor, I have my terminal open with 5 start, and I want to start with creating a new branch. Always a good idea to make that in the beginning. 5 work in progress. All right, this is my one terminal. In the other, the application is already running. So what I will do is to check for this MB10, where is it actually coming from. If you're not familiar with Tailwind, the 10 is a multiple of force of 0.25 rem. So 10 probably is 2.5 rem. I'm not so good in math in my head anymore, but it's not 10 rem, it's something like 2.5. And what I can see, it's on the card Twitter .view file. And I see that this is a root component of the single file component, and I can collapse it in my IDE. I heard we want big screen, so I zoom in even more. And now I immediately see the problem of this. And this often happens if you're just prototyping, write something down quickly, and you need some spacing. What I always try to do is not to have outer spacing in my child components. My child components should really be like a box, but not have outer spacing to prevent bugs like this. So let me remove this class here and check where this card Twitter is actually used, which is here in the social media post generator. And now, if the class would have been here, close this again, I would have immediately seen that, hey, you know what? I need a margin bottom of 10 here as well. And now I have my margin, and now I can start coding. Refactoring first. All right, so the first exercise is to, in the API endpoint file imagepost.ts, use the chat API to generate DALL-E prompt in this article. There's a small sentence, but already a lot of things inside. I first will focus only on this part. In the API endpoint image.post.ts, use the chat API. That's already enough for a starter. So closing all of the other files, I am starting in this image post.ts, which was a bit prepared already. And here I see my first point, make a request to the chat API. So I will go back to my browser, and as a good developer, I will first read the documentation and then try it out. So I'm here in the OpenAI documentation, and I can see similar things to what we already seen yesterday in the conference. We see chat completion in create, we use a model, and we have some messages. But I know that we already had this in the code base, so I try to make my life a bit easier and just copy it. Yep, this is what we do. We copy code from the ai.post.ts. By the way, I have a problem as my German dialect to say T instead of D, so I'm sorry if you hear D, I mean T. And I will copy it here. I don't need the agents, but the rest already looks very fine. But what could the messages be? Here I have an empty array. On the OpenAI, I already have some examples. And the first thing I really want to find out is if it works, if the request runs through with my key and nothing more. I don't need to care about DALL-E yet. So I will copy paste them into the messages. And going back to the browser, unfortunately right now I don't see directly what the response could be. So what I will do is to simply say console log data to find out what is going on. Going back to my local machine. Oh, I need a URL right first. To test anything, I need a URL. So I thought, what could I do? And I thought, I'm sure that a developer has a blog. And then I went through this site and look at this page. This is amazing. I know I have no time, so I continue. But look at this. I'm going to the first URL and copy it. So Daniel, I will scrape your page now. And copy it and generate announcement. I can see Twitter running. I can see Facebook running. Images don't do anything yet, but I will go back to my terminal. Yeah. And I can see the console log response here. It says, I will read it out loud because I know even although it's zoomed in, it might still be small for you. Choices as an array, and this first array item includes message. So let's start with going to this data and go for the choices. And the good thing is that we have TypeScript support, so it will already show me here in my IDE suggestions what probably will come. I also have Copilot enabled, and it sometimes tries to guess, and it's sometimes quicker than the TS or auto completions. So Copilot has its good and bad parts. So I want this message. What I already know is that I need to throw an error in case this doesn't exist. So I want to have if does not exist, data, choices, the first one. I'm not entirely sure if I need to do something like this, but we could figure this out later. And in case this does not exist, I want to throw a new error, and how I catch it, we can see later. I want to still check, because I have something in my mind, that the message is not the last part, it's actually the content. So, okay, now TypeScript is helping me out. Okay, so let's do the same thing again. Generate announcement, wait until anything is ready. Oops, that was the wrong terminal. And I need that terminal. And it actually replied with Los Angeles Dodgers won the World Series. So the connection already works. Now the second part is actually to create now this DALL-E prompt. And what we've seen before today for what Daniel happened is that it timed out. So I try not to do too many things when creating this prompt on my local machine, where I might run into timeout. So maybe it depends on my quota. But what OpenAI has is a playground. So you can find it here, and let's check this one out. I zoom in a bit. Yep. So the system message is, you are a prompt engineer, definitely, creating only prompts. I hope it will understand me. And what do we actually need to generate? We need to generate a DALL-E prompt for a specific article. And we already have a hint here saying focusing on keywords that are related to the physical objects make for better visuals. So what I will try to do, create realistic physical objects based on this article. And I will copy the same URL again and submit. So it will tell me a lot. Create a physical. Oh, it will. It doesn't even stop. So this doesn't seem to be perfect yet. So let's try if we can improve it a bit. Like provide true realistic physical objects based on this article. Delete this. Submit this again. And this is much better than I had before. A file organizer and a USB drive holder. This is what I want. So now is the time that I actually will copy the system message. Let me create new lines so it might be a bit easier to read the system content. You are now the prompt engineer, and we need the user message in here. Right now the URL is hard-coded in here, but we have it on top. On line 6 we have the const URL, which I can almost easily use. First I need the other quotes, however they are called, the flexible quotes, and add the URL here. All right, so let's try it out again. I'm going to my localhost. I click on generate announcements. Nothing will probably happen yet, but I will go back to my terminal. And I do have this output now here from OpenAI. So we already created the prompt for the prompt to create the prompt for the other API. We had before the backticks. Thank you. We saw it before. The request may time out. So no matter what project I'm working at, I might have quota that I don't want to mess up with, or it might be slow and I want to be very quick as a developer, or the backend might not even be ready yet. So I'm very used to working with mocks, and this is something we will actually do now. But first, before we create mocks, always a good idea to just commit for myself. I will use git add dot, and don't do this in reality, only do this for prototyping. And commit connect OpenAI. So this is saved. I will copy this prompt here that I had and go into my file system. And I'm not actually used to working so much with Nuxt, so I'm hoping I'm not accidentally using some magic of it, but I will create a mocks file and call it image.ts. And inside I will export the const prompt equals, oh yeah, that's not good. We need the double quotes, and so that VS Code knows what's going on. We will write it like this. So and now I don't need to actually talk to the API again and again, which might time out or tells me you have asked me too many things, so wait a second. So what I will do is to OpenAI, create a const OpenAI prompt equals the prompt that I just created. Yes, and it's exported by my IDE here. And I can outcomment, not sure if outcomment is the real word, but I say it, this one here, and continue with task 2 now that I have my prompt pre-saved. Task 2 is now to send a request to DALL-E based on this prompt. We had it before. As a good developer, I will start with reading the documentation, which we have thankfully here, generating docs for DALL-E. Image generation. And here, already provided, thankfully in me for Node.js and not in Python, is an example request. So we have a const response with await OpenAI create image. We see a prompt, which is a simple string. We have an n, and n means that I can request 1 to 10 images at a time. I think 1 is enough. And I have a size parameter for different sizes. And I think just so that it goes quickly, I will just stick to 256 for now. And here I actually already see the response data, which is nice. So I'm copy pasting these into VS Code. So what I wanted is 256, 256, like this. And then have a const image URL. And as before, if the image URL doesn't exist, let Copilot write a random arrow that we can work on later. So I remember that I had the prompt here. I know that I will do mistakes later if I don't add a comment already here to say the const OpenAI prompt that I want to use later is actually these data choices array first item message content, and then I can later simply remove this. This is a mock to do. I will find it later, I'm sure. All right, so move on. We have tried to talk to DALL-E. So also now we throw an error if it doesn't work. And if it works, we make a good old console log. On my local machine, generate announcements, going back to VS Code. Waiting. Oh, we actually have it. It worked on the first try. Good. Yes, it's always like the first time, right? Development doesn't get boring. So we have a URL here. Let's actually check it out, what we have. We have a cat image. Oh, I didn't replace the prompt, right? This was a default prompt, but hey, here's the cat image. Enjoy it. So closing the terminal, checking it in the code. Here's my prompt, await Siamese cat. Next time I will ask you for a ragdoll. Okay, and we have the OpenAI prompt actually replaced here and generate again. Dun, 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 dun. Twitter is still working. And now I have a new image. I think I can also in my terminal. Oh, no, I can't do this here. This is why I usually use a right terminal, because I can do right click and open link directly. Never get this to work into VS Code directly. But here is now, well, that's something that probably has something to do with Vue.js. We can definitely for sure improve it. So we had this good prompt already, but as it was also written in the exercise documentation, we can add more to this one here. So I want to explain it a bit better even. And I want to say repeating the items, because I want to have this effect as we saw in the exercise example where we saw different laptops. I will try it out one more time and hope for a result that might fit better. So is this already the new one? I think somebody wrote, oh, I learn more. Probably I learn more than you in this in this live coding here. I can use comma. Okay. Cool. Thanks for the tip. For now, I will stick to my old method because it works. Still not exactly what I wanted, but we will move on. So we have this, and then we have the first task in here, which is returning the image as a base64 encoded string. And here's a hint for us that the following code is useful. I think actually the following code is like exactly what we want. So I can delete this in this here, and I can delete this last line. And I think I called this image URL instead of image URL in lowercase r and l. And then I'm done and have my base64 string. So let's test this out one more time. And actually here I want to open my Vue DevTools now. And go to the, I also can't make them bigger. Well, but I will talk you through it again. There is an image canvas or canvas image. No, it's not loading. Let me reload my page. Check if I had a missing state. Are the images loading? Yes, they are loading. Yeah, something like this is what we want. And here's an image canvas. And in very small letters, we see here we have a background image with this base64 string. And we have a title dummy and we have a gradient. Now, the same thing as before, I want also this image mocked because I don't want to wait for the AI every time and every time again. There's a thing that in the DevTools, I unfortunately cannot just click on copy the value because it will also copy this 262 blah, blah, blah total length. But what I can do is now going to the image canvas and simply console log the props of the background image. And I now have them here, and I can click copy on this one, and I go back to my mocks file, and I export const base64, the string, paste it in, go to my image.post, and here I do the same. I comment that out and return base64. Yes, thank you, Copilot. Remove this later again. And now, if I do this again, I should have the images directly here without asking the API in reality. Sometimes I know that you have hot module replacement, but sometimes I just do the reload to make sure everything is on the latest state again. So what do we need to do next? Next on the list is, we have the image, and we do have to find the title of the article with regex because I'm such a regex expert. So first I'm going to scrape.post.ts, and I can see already prepared. I have the URL and I have a dummy title here. To get the HTML, I think I can simply use this fetch of the URL. Oh, it's of course, maybe you've seen it, it's suggested me then, but I think I can simply use async await to get the HTML of the page. As you can see, I work actually a lot with copy paste, with console logging. Trying this and going to my terminal, and now I can see here I have the HTML of the page. I don't need to mock this because this is almost for free, but I could. And now I need a regex, of course. Function get h1 from HTML string, HTML type string. And I was hoping exactly for that. Copilot wrote it for me. I'm not selling Copilot, but I'm happy that I have this here now. So I have a regex, which is checking if there's an H1. And I think it also checks for something else. Maybe it's a class inside or some attributes, H1 class, H1 style, and then the things in between. And then it returns the first match of this regex, which is usually a syntax I always have to check. So, and then I can const title get HTML from string and pass the HTML. It shows me an error that the type is unknown of HTML. And I think I can do a trick with TypeScript to say, I expect that this is a string. In reality, I probably still would do a bit more error handling to check if it's really the right thing I want. And return the title. So let's see if this actually worked. I generate announcement again, and I go back to my Vue DevTools, which I know I'm tiny, but I don't know how to make them bigger right now. So I can see, yay, it worked again. Image canvas, thank you, Go-Violet. Title is Vue Composition API plus Tailwind file drag and drop. And I have still my background image and the title. All right, so now I see this image here, but this is not actually what we want yet. So now the last task is in image canvas again, where we have a bit of boilerplate code already. So and we see to JPEG of HTML to image. With TypeScript support, I should be able to just type to JPEG and see what it actually expects. And I see that as a first type, it expects a node, which is an HTML element. And probably this node HTML element will be turned into this JPEG image. So for this, we need a ref attribute, ref, and I will call this also image ref. You can call it whatever you want. This is my personal style of calling refs to also suffix them with ref, to say ref more often. And I will append this ref here. So that it actually exists, I need to mount the component first. So I have on mounted and not messing up my brace. So like these. And what I still first would do is to check if the image ref value is really there. And in case it is not, I will just return for now, but error handling and etc. But in case it is there, I want to call to JPEG with that image ref dot value. And it suggests me that there's that is a promise, catch finally and then. So now it's time to actually check the documentation for this again. And I am here on the GitHub page. Yep. And I can see that I have here HTML to image. It's using PNG here, but it probably works the same for JPEG. And it returns a data URL. So good old copy pasting again. Going here. If you want to, you can rewrite it to async await, but I don't see a problem with then functions. But rather focus on what we have inside here. So this is something about if you did front end 10 years ago, this is how we did things. We appended things on the body by ourselves. Nowadays, we don't have to do this anymore. Instead, I will create a image source, which is a reactive string. And inside of here, I will have the image source value equals this data URL. All right, and inside of here, I need an image, which should only be there if I have an image source. And if the image source is there, it should be the image source and some alternative text. Okay, so how are we doing here? We'll generate the images again. And what I can see in my tiny console, what you can't see is that we now actually have two images, the one that is in my HTML and the one that is the one that I can actually download afterwards. So, but I actually only want to display one of them, right? So I go here to my image ref div container, and I apply the dynamic class to be hidden in case we have the image source, because in case we have it, I only want to display the actual image of it. And what you can't see is that this is now actually only, no, it's not yet. Let me refresh. Oh, hidden is of course not removing it from the DOM, right? I'm sorry. It would just be hidden. Yeah. It's still there, but it has the class hidden above. All right, so the width and the height doesn't seem to be correct. And assuming the problem is that I didn't apply some width and height to the container, actually. I do this directly on the container and not on the image, hoping it makes sense. I will use Tailwind for that. And with this arbitrary values where I can do kind of inline style with classes and check if it works. I should also copy this URL actually in this input field so I don't have to copy paste it every time again. And now we have this. This is more like of what we want. But now I can see the image here and the title here. And in this example, it looked much nicer. So let's try in a couple of minutes if I somehow can restyle this image. So what do we have? We have a div, we have an image, we have a paragraph. All right, so I know that this needs to be absolute to be behind the whole thing. So let's apply class absolute. And whenever you need absolute, you probably need relative on the parent. I want to have it on top 0, on bottom 0. And I think it was something like, I don't know, 30% or something in the example. Maybe I should be creative, but I don't have time to be creative. I have only 30 minutes. So let's check how it would look like. Because it cannot do this with this image creation, what I will do to create the styles perfectly is to not turn it into a JPEG for now, and we will do this later. So I can work on the image actually first. So trying this out. And now we have something to work with. Let me just check. Is it hidden? No, it's not hidden, but we don't have an image here anymore. I check again. I know you can't really see my console here. Oh, I didn't open it. Classic. So I have my image. Everything is good. Just left 30 didn't work as expected yet. But let's see how we can fix that. So no, it needs to be left. Yeah. This is, it needs, of course, left is 0 and right is something like, I don't think I need right. Do I need right? No, I think I can just do a width of 40%. This is how it should work like. Yes, and this is more like it. So now I have it here. Okay, what else was there to style? We have the gradient to do. So the gradient comes in here as an object. So I can't on the fly create classes for this. So instead, I probably need to do inline styling now for real. And I do this with the colon because I need to have the props inside. And I need to have this as this backticks string. So this is the background is linear gradient. to right, comma, and then I think I just need to have them here, and this is gradient start, and another comma, and gradient finish for the gradient. All right. This is why it looks so weird. I want to have a width of 400 and a height of 200. All right. Better than before, not perfect yet. It's not on the bottom though, which is a bit weird. This can sometimes happen with images. I will do a trick, which is to set also the height to full height. So height 100% on the image, and then it will actually expand. But now it also is stretched. And for this, to fix it, I will use object container cover. I think it's cover. Looks good. So this is better than before. What we saw that is somehow was behind the title though. So we using a blend method here. IDE supports shows me all of the options. I know that I want to use a mix blend to check this in, and I will do the mix blend soft light for this nice effect that's actually here below. All right, so the title needs to be in the background image and in a white box. So I will create a new div. And give it a background of white. We need to make it absolute again. Maybe we need to make it absolute again so we can really position it again. In this scenario, it's the first time I actually, in a long time, use with percentage instead of rem. Usually, I would really do more like something like 2 rem. But the reason is that the heights here is now just dummy code by me, but I want to, no matter the size, I just don't want to have it 2 rem on the top, but really something like 20%. And on the left, 40%, I'm adding random numbers here, 10%. And the bottom, just as the top, also 20%. And inside the inner container, I want to have a bit of padding, 8. And this is more like it. Now I think I want to rather have this overlapping effect. So left 30, more like it. All right. We want to have it rounded to make it nice. And we want to have it as a nice color, like text slate 600s, about the details. Better. And the text seems to be, let's use a different padding. Probably for the padding, I would also need rather percentages or something. But I'm running out of time, and I want to center the text, which is very easy centering nowadays. No, it's not easy. Too bad. Maybe I need a half height full again, and then it's in the center. Now, if I have, you can stop me if I'm going on, but I had this challenge here for whoever prepared this with this MacBook layout, so I need to rebuild this in very quickly. So I need a div. We need a div. We need to have this relative. We need to have this absolute again. But there are probably 100 ways to do this, but this was the first thing I could have thought of. Left 0, right 0. And we need a border bottom and a border gray 200. And then we need circles. I don't know how to make circles. Tailwind CSS circles. Yep, border radius. I need exactly that. I need to be quick. I will copy paste the classes here and see what I have. And I have them. I don't need a shadow or padding. Let's make them width and height small, and let's make them red. 3 times yellow, green, and I want to have them in one line. So again, flex and item center. And almost. So let's change the width and height. Opla. This doesn't work if people are watching. So to 1, and we need a gap of 1. So a bit of padding. Oh, not padding. P1. Yes, good enough. So let's move on. Make this actually an image again so that it looks nicer. And now everything back together, right? So I need to go to image post, remove this here, and step by step. Oh, I didn't actually remove the request yet. This was an issue. But anyway, it worked out. And command that in again. So I have my double prompt. I think I did nothing else. Now is the moment. Now is the time. We'll reload the page just to be sure. And generate. Twitter is generating. Facebook is generating. Images are generating. Come on. You! I'm probably sure we can improve on the prompts now that we have the rest, because I'm not entirely sure what this image means in the background, but that will be the fun to work in with OpenAI. I can do the right click, save image as, download it, check what I have, and I have it here. That was it.
Yay! This is fantastic, and it looks amazing. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for going through all of that with us. We do have a few questions for you. Let's get started with, what experience have you had using AI in your real life projects? Do you have any tips you can share from that experience?
Yeah. So first of all, this was not a prepared question, but I do have experience with AI in my real life project at work at Zavvy. And just recently, we started maybe only 2 months ago, we added AI to the product. I don't want to talk too much about it, what it actually does, but you can create texts now, very similar to how do you use ChatGPT. You can, in some areas of our product, talk to OpenAI and let text generate. But it's not only like talking to ChatGPT, but we have our own model that we train, so it matches also on our product. And the prompts were the most important thing. So we first thought it would be like the challenge to connect OpenAI and figure it out with the requests and everything. But this wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was to write good prompts. And we have prompts that can be very long. So we have them in the correct syntax and linguistic styles are now words I know. That we actually want to have it. So we have it in the language the user has set the language on the product too. And for example, in Germany, we have something like Siezen and Duzen, something nobody really needs. But so we use the correct linguistic style, and maybe we need bullet points and etc. So this was really the big challenge, to write the good prompts, especially as you have a limit of tokens for the prompt you send, including also the completion you get back. So the longer your prompt gets, the smaller your completion or the answer could also be. So this was, most importantly, spend time on writing these prompts, or if you can, have someone else doing it while you're figuring out the technical part. And the technical part is actually, as we saw it right now, you talk to an API and show it in the browser as if you would talk to any other backend.
Very cool. Thank you. Next question. The image generation process is a bit slow. Any suggestions or strategies on how to make it faster?
You know what? We also have not only this text generation on Zavvy, but we can also create we call them journeys. It's a like a micro course generator. And depending on the user's input, we generate between 1 and 10 pre-written, pre-configured, pre-filled with images sections. And this can take 10 to 15 minutes. And we kindly ask the user, you don't have to stay here. We will generate it in the background, but it will take a while. Strategies to make it faster is, again, make the prompt as good as possible so it might be quicker. Limit the size of the completion. So for example, we are in text generation also say reply first with like just 2 bullet point lists. If the user wants more, we can generate them. For image generation, it's actually probably more complicated. When it comes to text generation, I would advise to use a streaming process when you talk to the backend. So instead of like waiting for 5 minutes and then seeing this one post, as we had it with the Facebook post and Twitter post, instead do it as a streaming as you see it, for example, on ChatGPT, where you can see the first 2 lines, then the next 2 lines, and you as a user can always click on stop generating before you can see the whole thing. That doesn't probably help too much with image generation.
I like that you mentioned of that reminding people, well, you can go do other things at least in the meantime. Like that, I do think being able to do that in the background is at least useful, not necessarily faster, yet something that is definitely worthwhile for an end user.
Yeah, well, a good old HTML game on the page again. I'm sorry, I don't. It's actually the first time I personally work with DALL-E in this project. I will ask other people and see if they have tips, and then just also tweet them and share their knowledge with you.
Thank you. And are there any libraries that you found helpful for composing images on the front end?
There's one thing I have to admit, I'm not the biggest fan of libraries. I'm this person for let's just do it myself because then it does what it actually should do. Unfortunately, right now, the same answer, I don't, but I will keep my eyes and ears open and maybe hope that maybe also Daniel has a good tip, as I'm not sure who came up with this exercise, but I thought this image creation was the most complicated part of it, and maybe he has some more experience with that.
And thank you. And thank you for offering the follow-up, because as a beginner, that would be really helpful, knowing a library to possibly use. Yet as someone more experienced, I could see how it is also, that's not going to be as easy, but you have the knowledge there. So thank you for that. And last question, why do you use Arc?
I can tell you, the biggest advantage is that you have, can you share my, no, that's work stuff. Probably let's not share it. But I have different spaces. So you saw my tabs on the left. And this is connected to my private Google account with my extensions for Svelte and Vue and whatever. And with this pinch thingy, I get to the second space, but it's not like moving the whole MacBook screen, it's within the browser. And then I have my workspace, which has my Google account of my work and my extensions for work and etc. And everything is separated, and especially helpful at work if you need to test different users, because we have admins, managers, employees, all of these different roles. And I don't want to log out, log in, log out, log in. So I have like 3 spaces now to have one tab open with all of my testing users. And then I think it's good to support the modern technologies, because we have the same browser since the last 20 years, but not the same web as the last 20 years.
That is a great call out. I will say I tried Arc for a while, and I think it's user error in the fact that I would go on my streams to like open a new tab, like click something, and it would always open a new window, not open it in what's already existing. I'm like, I like Chrome. Chrome is good, but yet not, as you said, like being able to transition into the newer technology is so helpful. So thank you for going into the bit about Arc. And that is all we have for you today, Vanessa. Thank you for walking us through that, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Good luck.
Bye.